Okay. Peace to the viewers. Peace to the viewers. So, this is international law class number 4, if you will. Even though I'll make another part 4 to this, because this is really going to be about the metaphysics of law. Okay. Um, for those who've never seen this class, again, this is one of the newer classes. So I'm Akil Bey. Again, this is international law class number 4. And if you would like to ever join this class in the future, you will have to contact me on social media and just let me know. All right. So this is going to be about the metaphysics of international law. Okay. And I want to start off by showing y'all um, these pictures I have on my screen. I'll try to go through them in a timely manner because I really want to get to, excuse me, the France versus United States of America case, international court case. Hopefully we can squeeze that in at the end of this video, at least the beginning of it. But I feel that making a video on the metaphysics of law or the cult aspects of law, slightly to different degrees, but pretty much the same thing, because this is important because, you know, a lot of Moors are being taught by people who might have a thumb on them, if you will. You know, they don't know where to go themselves. You know, whether that may be a grand sheik or anybody outside of the temple who's strong influence to you, you know, and you just look for answers. But this is a therapeutic way of helping you to transition comfortably, slowly, degree by degree, into understanding where you're at opposed to where we're supposed to be at, which is statehood and international law. Okay. So I'm gonna go through these videos and explain them as we go through them. But I like to start off with this picture. I don't know why I keep kicking me out. This is crazy. Okay, let me start. Let me start back. Okay, so all right. So I want to start off by reading and then explaining why I chose this picture. So it says a treaty is a binding agreement under international law entered into by actors in international law, namely states and international organizations. Treaties are called by several names: treaties, international agreements, protocols, covenants, conventions, exchanges of letters, exchanges of notes, etc. So here we see that treaty, it means covenant. Covenant is a word that's in a lot of Bibles, Qurans, spiritual religions, things of that nature. So we're gonna get into the Quran, what it says in the Quran, what it says in the Bible, what it says in the Kabbalah about a covenant. And the science of different avenues that relate to that. So treaty is a covenant. So anytime you see covenant in the Bible, we know that in international law that means treaty. So we can start to angle it more. So what is this covenant aspect? Why are we talking about this? Okay. Now, I don't know about you guys, but myself, I was born a Christian. Okay, so I like to start off with basic things uh, in many different avenues, such as Christianity, Islam, Judaism, etc., um, because a government is to basically protect all opinions, all religions, etc., right? Well, that's God, right? He really don't care with religion. Okay, but there's a certain aspect still, nonetheless. Okay, because when we talking about covenants with this nation and covenants with that nation, we talking about treaties that govern. So we talking about a way when Christians have the Bible and Muslims or Muslims have the Quran and et cetera, et cetera. Well, this is just extensions of covenants in the truest sense. Okay, once we read it correctly. So, what does covenant mean in the Bible? A covenant is a relationship between two partners who make a binding promises to each other and work together to reach a common goal. They're often accompanied by oaths, signs, and ceremonies. Covenants define obligations and commitments, but they are different from contract because they are relational and personal. Okay, so a covenant, we already explained how it relates in religious and international law, right? So a covenant is a relationship between two partners or two parties, right? Such as Moors or Moroccans and America, right? That's a covenant, okay? And we're gonna get more extensive into how we can see how this all relates to Jesus, basically. How Jesus came. Jesus came in 2021. Some people say 2012 or whatever. 2021, when AMPAC or Elodium Morris Pradium, Ante Colorado, sent their paperwork in and became the first Moorish state government out of however many it's going to be, 50, right, to make a so-called United States of Morocco. That's when Jesus came. So, and we're going to get into how this ain't just talk. This is speaking in international law, we can say this. Okay. So covenant, right, is a relationship between two parties working to reach a common goal. So as you can see, a government has many religions, right? It don't care what your religion is going to protect you, because why? You're a human. You have human rights. So it don't care. As long as you're breathing, as long as you're a human being, there's a covenant for you somewhere, regardless of what your religion is. It don't matter, right? But there's still a fine line even within that. Because when we talking about Moroccan laws. When we look at the Moroccan laws to follow our ancestors, a certain line we got to follow. I say you got to follow, but it's a certain line you got to see, at least, none at least. So I'm not saying you got to be Muslim or Muslim or nothing like that. But there's certain Moroccan laws. You don't have to be a Muslim, say I'm a Muslim, just to call yourself a Moor. That's like saying that your government has to enforce one religion. Now you're talking about a theocratic government at that point, in which it restricts freedom if you force a certain religion, right? Or not allowing or enabling avenues of certain religion to happen. Okay. And it's a fine line because even the Christians are Islam. They're even they're really true practitioners of Islam in the truest. So that's another story for another day. So we see that a covenant is oaths and signs and ceremonies. This is all relates to a government. You take oaths, right? You have your signs, ID, your passports and logos, way you identify yourself, and your ceremonies, i.e., your inaugurations, your meetings, et cetera, right? So this is all talking about law. At the end of this video, or at the end of this metaphysical aspect, I'm gonna show y'all a video by Seven Bomar, and we're gonna go in a little bit on that before we start the France versus United States of America case. So this is a verse from the Quran, Surah 7:172, in which reads, "And recall, O Prophet, when your Lord brought forth descendants from the loins of the sons of Adam, and made them witnesses against their own selves, asking them, Am I not your Lord? Then they say yes. They said, Yes, we do testify. We did so, lest you claim the day of resurrection. We were unaware of this." Okay. So and then it goes to explain verse or these in more detailed aspects. But just this based off of this, right? Okay, let's just break this down right quick. It is not much to say right here, but let's just break this down right quick. Descendants from the loins of Adams, the muscular, the descendant of the atom. What is the atom? The literal atom, right? The cells, etc. The atom. So the descendant from the atom, which is you, your body, right? So which made witness against their own selves, right? Who do we in the first video of law, international law, we said that we don't need anybody's permission to acknowledge this as a state, right? And it's because what does it say? Not only in international law does it say that, in the United Nations Charter, but also in this Quran it says, and made them witnesses against their own selves. Okay, we recognize ourselves, asking them, "Am I not your Lord?" So what's the Lord? A landlord. Okay, governors of land, right? So what? Wait. What are we talking about here? Because it sounds like the Lord is kind of asking some people this, right? So wait. What's the Lord? Well, the Lord is your state. Remember, a state is a person. That's considered a person in international law. That's Jesus, right? Your state, and we're gonna get into the. I really want to get into the Kabbalistic aspect, because that's where I feel that it's more easier to see, at least in my opinion. But so we see that the Lord means landlord. Obviously, that's a certain type of lord, right? So you have a lordship over people. Well, you're part and parcel to your government, right? So who makes the government? The people make the government. So when we say we see each other and we see God, right? We have to use each other to see that in order to form a certain aspect of the unified God or the great God. This is the Tower of Babel, right? Using different languages, unifying the same language. What is that? International law. Trying to readjust our consciousness to a more proper and upright position. So it says we did so lest you claim on the day of resurrection. We were unaware. So some Moors in so-called Colorado, Georgia, Oregon, right? They're unaware of the Moor state governments. They're unaware of the salvation is right there at the fingertips, right there at the base of knowledge, right? It's knowledge that's gonna free you. That's it. All they gotta do is know who they are and where it's at. So it goes to explain the preceding discourse concluded with the note that God made the Israelites enter into a covenant with their Lord. In the following passages, all men are told that all men are told that a covenant with God is not the exclusive privilege of Israel. In fact, all human beings are bound in a covenant with God, and a day will come when they will be made to answer how were they able to observe the covenant. So not only are we talking about international law, we're talking about energy. You gotta remember that everything comes from spiritual sense, the spiritual realm. So not only do you have to think multidimensional when reading this, because international law is multidimensional, and we're gonna explain how that is more so at the end of this. It goes to say this event, according to several traditions, took place at the time of creation of Adam. So this is the very beginning of time. Covenants were a thing. It don't matter what creation story you're going based off of. When Egypt was started off at 10,000 BC, or you talking about pre-dynastic Egypt, or you talking about worlds beyond the poles, or whatever. It don't matter. So it's a relationship, a promise. Okay. Adam, from the prostration of the angels before Adam and the proclamation that made that man would be God's vicegerent, I can never say that, on earth, all the future progeny of Adam, which got and gathered, I can't see that, and were endowed by both existence and consciousness in order to bear both existence and consciousness in order to bear witness to God's lordship. The best interpretation of this event is found in the statement by Ubay B. Cobb, and then it goes to say some other things. Okay. Well, I'll just read that last section, that last paragraph. God gathered all human beings, divided them into different groups, granted them human form, and and the faculty of speech made them enter into covenant. So language made them enter into covenant. If you guys ever seen Seven Bomar's series on language, you probably know why I put so much emphasis on language, because that's what actually shapes. That's a 90-degree. That's what actually instills. That's the foundation of your conscience. That's the tier found. That's jurisdiction. The right words. But when we talk about straight energies, or in reality, anybody who goes through the process of language, who goes through that, a baby, that's the first. They have to learn how to talk, right? The right words. So language is a good indication of the quality of your consciousness. It's a good indication of the shape, the direction, et cetera, i.e. music, is it hindering you? All that, right? He goes to say, am I not your Lord? They replied, assure you are, O Lord. Then God told them, I call upon the sky and the earth and your own progenitor, Adam, to be witness against you, lest you should stay on the day of judgment, that you were ignorant of this. So some Moors who are ignorant of this, right? The fact that we need a more state government. Know well that no one other than me deserves to be worshipped, deserves to he worship, and no one other than me is your Lord. So who is this me? Your state. You have to abide by your de jure Moroccan laws, right? And which lead to peace. It leads to oneness. Because one thing that we didn't get into, and I'm gonna just go to the next screen. One thing we didn't get into is more so on what covenant means. Covenant means a stronger relationship with God, a closer relationship with God, right? That it makes you emanate the spirit of that, because it brings what? Peace, oneness. What is that? A government. So it don't matter what you call it, what religion, it's bringing peace and oneness amongst the world, right? And eventually you have things like United Nations who say they aim for peace, right? And of course, in the future, we know what's going to happen. Moors get online, show everybody how peace is really demonstrated, right? The demon demonstrated, demoning, exampling, manifesting, showing people. That's the DAEMOE, the genius, right? If you're not demonstrating, everybody has a demon. If you're not demonstrating, what are you doing? It's a balance, right? So on this page, this is from the Bible, okay? Genesis 15:18. On that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, to your descendants, I give this land, from the Wadi of Egypt, the great river, the Euphrates. Okay. Now, for those who don't know, y'all can look up video or YouTube channels like Curry Mayo Ahua Aha. I forgot how to say it, but it's KURIMEOAHAU. Curry Mayo Aha Ahu. And he explains a lot on the historical aspects of things like the Euphrates, things like Where's the True Egypt. Also, 432 The Drop Radio is a good channel that explains extensively, on things like that. So I just figured I'd throw that out there. But this is also from the Bible, in which you see that a covenant grants people land. Well, obviously, from the start of the video, we talk about treaties. So we need to enforce covenants, right? A lot of people think rainbows and stuff, right? Because when we talk about covenants, if a government is a state, and a state or a government is based on the people, so it's based on you being part and parcel. That means your chakras. This rainbow effect, they say this, it has to come through you. You have to put in to some extent. This is we talk about taxes, none the least, right? We talk about taxes and stuff because a lot of people don't think that we shouldn't be paying taxes to the United States of America. Well, yeah, you're right. We're not citizens of the United States, but we should be paying taxes to our own Moroccan government. Why? Because we want our own rights. We want our own. We want to create jobs for our own self, ourselves, et cetera, et cetera. We want to support each other. That's how we support each other without supporting each other directly, right? So, for those who've been there in Law Class 1, you see this is a familiar image from Montevideo Convention, Rights and Duties of the State. It talks about the state is a person in international law. So we're talking about a person. We're talking about Jesus in the sky, right? We're talking about Muhammad. We're talking about Buddha. We're talking about Krishna. We're talking about all of them, right? So all them made covenants. Remember, Jesus, in order to get through me, in order to get to God, you got to get through me. Okay. Well, if you want to see a closer relationship with God on earth, not just yourself, guess what got to happen? A covenant. Not just for your territory. We're talking about the quote unquote United States of Morocco is coming. And that's just a placeholder now. I'm not saying that's what it's gonna be, we don't know. But so the state is a person, right? So now we're talking about law. It's a permanent population. What is a state? It's a permanent population. Okay. So now only we're talking about state is a person, i.e. Jesus taking the wheel. The state is your people. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about it being a connection to a sea of people, a sea of ancestors, a sea of reality, another dimension, a gateway. It's a connection to another realm, another power, in which I'm trying to paraphrase until I'm really trying to get to what I want to say once we show these other videos. So this dimension, so called, in a sense, it's in a humane or mundane aspect, is called a population, a nation, a group, a think tank, right? This creates a sphere, a group of spirits thinking in a certain structure. This creates a sphere, right? A portal type of effect. And I'm just, throwing synonyms out there. So, and again, this is just opinion. Okay, this is just a metaphysical class. Okay, and so we have defined territory, right? Well, now we're talking about how, again, there's a right and a wrong way, even if we're talking about metaphysics, because we can't just be saying anything means anything, right? Can't just be say root chakra is this and this and that and that and that and this, and it has nothing to do with the root chakra necessarily. Like it's the furthest thing that has to do with the root chakra. Well, why is this important? Even though it has relation to it, why is it important saying this wrong and this is right? Why is that important? Because without a certain structure, without a certain alignment, without a certain direction, we will be so far off continually, time and time again. So, we can say things like there's no such thing as a dumb question, but at a certain point, there is, because there's a certain value that discredits why it is, or why it's not. Right? Some people ask questions just because they know better. They start to get annoying after a while. Therefore, all the help that they wanted, they You know, people stop answering. People start looking. You know, the mind starts to be tainted differently. I'm just throwing a scenario out there. But so it's two sides to everything, basically. Okay, even though it's still a oneness, it all comes down to a bending point, a compression point. So we see that a defined territory means what? A stable place. You know, stable points, meaning if you cross that line, you're now in the wrong. You cross these state lines, you're not in our boundaries. Meaning right and wrong, somewhere we got to draw the line somewhere, right? In a government, right? So this is a hierarchy, a rank, a people, right? This starting to sound like a whole world here. Why? Because state is nationality. What is nationality? It includes everything. Nationality is like saying the waters of noon, or like saying qigong. Like qi, energy work. Qigong means energy work. So that's like saying like energy work is literally everything in the world. Everything, even your mind, everything, anything. So we talking about statehood. You're talking about everything. You're talking about nationality. You're talking about everything. Well, let's put it more correctly. You're talking about nation state. You're talking about everything. Because we already clarified in other videos that nationality seems like everything, as if once related to everything, but now it took a turn in political law that where now it has changed to nation state and then to statehood. Why? Because state has permanent population, i.e., a nation in it. So what's the point of saying nation state or nationality when statehood is the now accepted credential or terminology in international law, right? So in the capacity to enter in relations with other states. So you can hop from dimension to dimension. You can go from country to country, right? You good. You protected. You got the passport you need from the American government, et cetera, right? And I'm gonna just go through these next two slides quick. Covenant. These are from the Bible, where you can see the covenant or the treaty, the format, right? In which you can see the preamble was in Deuteronomy 1 through 5, chapter 1, verse 1 through 5. And it goes through everything that makes statehood in this sense in the Bible. So you know how in international law you got to have your state constitution, your state flag, right, your seal, your inauguration, etc. It has its own ancient way. So we know international law has changed throughout the time as to stating what's needed. Okay, so it has its sanctions, right? The succession, the arrangements, right? The inauguration. And this is another aspect of where you can find this. Same setup, same deal. Okay. This is how you can get your Christian family members or Muslim family members or whatever to understand the human right aspect, the oneness, because now we're getting down to oneness. Everybody's breathing. There's no religion to that. Some people just named it Joshua, Jeshua, or Shu, or whatever. I don't care what you name it. Everybody got Jesus. Everybody got Muhammad. Everybody got Buddha in some type of sense. So this picture, all right. Now we're getting into okay, I just want to see where he's at. Now we're getting into uh the Kabbalah, right? Judaism, right? In which that it describes the language, the blueprint, the proper uh steps for consciousness to take. You know how you have mental energies. This describes mental energy and placements, the direction, the proper alignments. This describes the alignments of the body, right? So there's one particular sphere that I like to talk about today, uh, primarily, primarily. uh, in which it's the middle sphere. Now, one sphere is missing. It's called the dot. Actually, it's a few spheres that's missing, but that's another story for another day. We're just going to take this basic Kabbalah picture because the description that's on it is more useful for my topic, what I'm talking about right now. So this middle sphere that says Tipareth or Tipareth, right? Right where it says second order, it says in the middle, 5 equals 6 or 5-6, right? It also says adaptus or minor, okay? Now, adaptus, now we're just going to go off of this picture before I explain everything off this picture. Adaptus is the adept. So it's you, right? This Tipareth point means in a planetary aspect, so-called planetary aspect, or astrology, it means sun. It relates to the sun. Okay. Now, this sun or this Tipareth point also relates or means beauty. Okay, and I'm just throwing out some common phrases or things it's known for. So for first off, it means adaptus, and it relates to the sun, right? So we're talking about what you can relate to. We're talking about your cognitive dissonance. We're talking about when you pay attention, sun means focus. It means attention, right? So what are you focusing on? It's like a laser beam, right? So this sun, it's a mimic of the god of the star sun series, right? So this is when they say, God made you in his image. Well, the sun is a replica, right? It's ironic because, well, if the sun is Jesus and the state is Jesus, which is the sun, then we're talking about your state government in this sphere right here, this Tipareth. Okay, and we're gonna talk about what it means in a more Kabbalistic aspect or energy, because that I find that in Hinduism to explain energy in the more in the deepest depths of consciousness, if you will, more than any other commonly known religion. So this Tipareth point, which means an adept, as we see, right? It's you adjusting your cognitive dissonance, your conscious mind, your sun, your focus, the stuff to pay attention to, right? Into the higher spheres that it has above it. Because we see this point is in the middle. Now we know things start in the center, right? We know things start in the center. There's no left hand path that's predominant over the right hand path. There's no right hand path that's predominant over the left hand path. The left hand path just means you need to get out of a pattern. It means chaos. It means you need to stop being a yes man, practice saying no. It means you need to stop going out dealing with this pattern, right? Right hand path just means you need to start making a tradition of some sort. You need to make a pattern of some sort. You need to have some type of alignment. You need to organize or realign yourself. That's what religion is. That's what the right hand path is. So everybody has a way of realignment, and everybody has a way of going against the grain, right? To some degree in life, whether it's one person, a company, or the government, it don't matter. Everybody got a left hand path, right hand path, but it's the middle that gives life to both. Okay. So this adept or the sun or Tipareth, it means minor because it's again the lesser sun. It's the physical, it's a representation of what gives life to this world. So if we're talking about something that gives life to this world, not only are we talking about your government gives life to your human rights, now you can exercise your spirit bodies, your actual body instead of your straw man, right? You can exercise freely, comfortably in the world, literally like you're supposed to, instead of being infringed upon, walking down the street, your physical body being under threat, restoration, right? Physically. and we're talking about spiritual bodies too, right? So this Tipareth point means, it also means mystical redeemer. That's another famous name for it, mystical redeemer. Now, this is a point where if you ever heard of voodoo or things of that nature, this is how people work with the so-called forces that be. So this Tipareth point means mystical redeemer, in which all we're talking about is you tapping into a deeper state that brings about a different realization into this world. You know, some people get thrown off. Oh, we're talking about lifting the car up through by your magic, and all, you know, you're being distracted from external reality, being distracted. Okay, we're talking about transformation of the consciousness, the thing that people been looking for since consciousness was discovered. Consciousness. Okay, consciousness has been looking for itself the whole time since it found out it was a thing, and now here we go, going through all this. So Tipareth, this point again, and I'm gonna just go through some different pictures here. As you see, this Tipareth, it connects to everything and it's in the center. Okay, so when Jesus came back, what is this? Well, the crown is so-called heaven, right? Heaven is a state of mind. Yes, a state. It's your state. Heaven is a state of mentality. Okay, what is that? Your constitution. It's on paper that explains to everybody else your state of mind and brings oneness, right? So this is the actual way in which what religions have done is say, hey, they think everything, religion and law, they think the whole world think democracy is bad, whole world think dogma is bad, whole world think stuff like that is bad. But I'll tell you this, dogma ain't bad. Democracy ain't bad. It's how you utilize it. Dogma just means it means principle. It also means opinion in etymology. So when we talking about dogma, we talking about your opinion. What is that? That's private law. What's public law then? Well, public law is your Moroccan laws and your state name and all that stuff. Because who you think Allah is, God is, Buddha is, Christian is, etc., that's private law. You talk to your buddies in that. You know, I ain't got nothing to do with your human rights and stuff. You think what you want to think about God. I don't care. If you're an atheist, I don't care. But to be an atheist and say, you're a part of a more state government, just imagine that. That's very contradictory in all truth. But, that's another story for another day. But, as we see, dogma, well, I'll make another video about that because I already made one. But dogma just means opinion. It means principle. So everybody has dogma. Dogma just means serious. What is that? That's your subconscious. So all you're doing is formulating your spirit bodies based on your beliefs in reality and your opinions. That's all you're doing. Everybody got the right to do that. And here we go see people arguing about that. How they should structure their spirit bodies like they got the authority to do so. Like they somebody assaulting in the spiritual realm. Like they literally somebody God. That's what we look like when we arguing about religion. Literally trying to be the judge over somebody's subconscious, like you got yours figured out. Literally. Because true Islam, what is that? Peace. It's the practice of peace. You ain't gonna do that by, trying to prove. You got to measure out the energy, measure out the touch. Okay. So, and I know I kind of got off track with that, but so this Tipareth point, it also, as you see, it means beauty. And we'll get into another picture that shows that. But it relates to everything. It means beauty. What is beauty? Beauty is the illusion because it was in God's image. It's very like God. It looks beautiful. God he looks similar, even though we haven't seen it necessarily, right? But this world mimics the other world. basically. And this is the illusion. This is why this connects to everything, because this is the point to where so-called Yadala Broth and friends said, okay, this is where we come from, right? This is they can't govern anything beyond this point. Okay. So as you see, it relates to the sun. This is more about this picture, okay, this Tipareth, in which more about I'm gonna make a separate video that has it's not too much based on international law, more about this to where it relates to tapping into different states, using different systems of consciousness and measuring, if you will, blueprints. So we see that the sun is in the middle. It gives life. You can see this. It's like a ray because it connects to each and every sphere. So this is the sun. It gives life to this shape, right? You see how it's connected. It mimics your human body, right? So it's saying this sun, this inner sun that's in you, is what you have to tap into. And this relates. We can get down to the heart. It also connects to the lower dantian or the lower heaven. This point is the lower heaven. Okay, if you're familiar with Qigong, you're familiar with how to draw energy to the lower heaven, and how to work with magnetism, how to draw in. When we breathe in magnetism, and I know I'm getting off topic, but we breathe in magnetism. This is just nothing but electricity and magnetism. Breath is magnetism. How much can you electrify yourself based off your breath? Because that's your blueprint. That's what's shocking you to the next point. So, and then coming down to the next few pictures before we get into the case or this video. So as you see, this Tipareth point relates to the heart. Okay, the middle of the body. It also relates to the solar plexus because that's also in this area, as the lower dantian is right below or in conjunction with the solar plexus, down to the root chakra. Okay, so those three lower. So it's really a conjunction of the solar plexus and the sacral. Really. So this Tipareth point, when we're talking about tapping into it, you're talking about, excuse me, the science, the nature, the reality of transmuting your consciousness in your heart space. This is how you, if you've ever heard Merkaba meditation, to where some people go outside and they meditate a certain type of technique, breathing technique, certain reality, certain way, certain type of meditation, simply put, that will cause a lot of people experience what's called chemtrail busters or cloud busters, in which you'll see a hole in the clouds right above where you're meditating, based on your orgone, energy, your emission, etc. So this is the science of basically your Tipareth is nationality. What is that? The quality of your character. So your Tipareth point is the quality of your spirit body. It's the quality of your so-called magic. How can you bring heaven to earth? What does that do? What is that? What is that? Your state. Your state is your covenant. What is that? It brings God closer to you. So what we are gods. The energy is coming through us, right? It's all coming through us. About how much can you unlock it in yourself? How can you measure this? Right. So, but in order to do that, as I always say, you only as real as you can keep it with yourself. So all these analogies that you see and you read in any Bible and the Quran or in the law about the Moors or whatever, that's the Moors, that's Allah, that's God, Jesus, whatever. Well, you only as real as you can keep it with yourself. So if you not paying attention to the thoughts that you need to pay attention to, well, guess who's not going to tap into this Tipareth point? Basically, guess who's not going to mimic God or have the powers to be able to utilize forces beyond the realms in a literal manner. Okay, so this is establishing literally God on earth. So when we talk about reading what the Marines doing, the soul contracts, they came back to restore. This, we're talking about this. We're talking about this. This is the being we're talking about. This being that's in between the earth and the skies that we're trying to get closer to. This atmosphere. We're trying to conjoin as one. Right? These atmospheres, your atmosphere, my state, your state, they state, there's more state. We all gonna be one. Right? So as above, so below, as within, so without. That's how you measure it. So, and as you see, compassion is also compelled, because then we get into actually, and again, I'm gonna make a whole nother video about this. The science of yearning. When you yearn for something, it's stronger than you actually just liking it a little bit. You just tampering with it. When you yearn for something, we're talking about you going into your purpose. We're talking a stronger sense of your spirit body. That's desire times two. This is you. This is how you know you're closer to a quote unquote portal. I'm gonna make a video about that specific portal. Okay. I told y'all this video will be everywhere. So one of the last pictures, okay, that's helpful information. As you see, it's the sun. Okay. And again, if this relates to the human body, well, the bottom is Melkuth, right? Where the feet, the sole of the feet, right? The Pisces, the sole of the feet, right? Well, Malkuth down there, if everybody is shining importance on Tipareth or, Kethera, the crown chakra, well, the soul, look where it's at in the middle. So when we talk about these things in the middle, right? Remember the earth. What is the earth? The heart. That's your body, right? Well, that's your feet. That's the soul of the earth, right? Well, the moon. Oh, the moon. That's where the souls come from. The portal of the souls come from. That's your subconscious, right? You see how that's in the center, right? That's your soul, the path, the soul, this middle path, right? Then we go up to the middle, above the moon. It's the sun. Well, that's above the moon. Well, hold on. Ain't astrology? Don't the sun give birth to the moon, and the soul, or the moon is what you really are, opposed to your sun, and all this type of stuff? Well, we see here that the sun is above the moon. So what's up with that? When we're talking about it's a balance between the two, feminine and masculine. No one is more important. Okay, this is where you say father is above mama, in a sense, because we're talking about manifesting something from the unknown sense. What does that? That's a demonstration. Who does that? Daddy, right? You go out and build the house for us, right? So, and then above that we have, what is that? Doth, Sirius. Well, that's the feminine energy that birthed the masculine, the sun. So here we go with the feminine energy again. And then what we have above that, another feminine thing. But some people call it the Godfather, which is really both of them in one, the masculine and feminine in one. Which you could say is dualistic to understand it more, but you see is one. You see? So it's a flip-flop between masculine and feminine, masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine, balance. Masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine, balance, masculine, feminine, all that type of stuff. Right? So, and I mean, even the moon has its masculine ways. People just say it's feminine because it's easier to understand. So, I figured that would be helpful. So before we end this a metaphysical aspect, I'd like to show you this video, and we can talk about briefly what he says. Okay, so this is Seven Bomar, and hopefully you guys can hear what he says. But this is his video. It's called The Oculus. if you like to look more on it. Okay.
The reality is still what you can, only what you can imagine. So I want to keep going here. So this, so I wanted to, again, because I've just revealed this symbolism here. And by the way, this is coming from the Day of the Fish, as you know, which is Shannon Dory's work. Excellent work. Just to, it's so much in these works. That's why I put them in almost as encyclopedias themselves, to go back or forward and refresh the database and realize again who were we talking about, and let's align it again for how we create a key to actually getting outside of, again, what we're calling consciousness. So it goes on and it says that in the Dogon religion, the Nomo, who were identified with the sun in the number 4, jump in here real quick, were always represented on the right side of the sanctuary. So that's like the right eye again. The jackal, who was identified with the earth, the moon in the number 3, was always represented on the left side of the sanctuary. Okay, and that's what I was mentioning before about Earth in itself not necessarily being the female planet, that the females have their own planet and it is still in control by the females that are there, versus the world kind of more being built. And I'm going to show why. And this is the world that we're talking about right now, that we're existing in, right? But we exist in multiple worlds. But you got to understand, well, how did you get to this world though? Because that's most people's questions, like, how did I get here? So it says, again, in the Dogon religion, the Nomo, who were identified with the sun and the number 4, were always represented on the right side of the sanctuary. The jackal, who was identified with the earth and the moon and the number 3, was always represented on the left side of the sanctuary. Together, the symbols or numbers form with the 7th ancestor, which identified the mistress of speech and the perfection of the combination of the Nomo and the human. To me, that statement right there gives you the version number of humanity. We're at, let's say in this context, 7.0, where the experiment between the combination of the Nomo and the human being has now been perfect. Okay, so that to me is like the version of human beings you're dealing with. And this means this particular body, this id, right? The thing that you're talking to when you're giving it inspiration. This would indicate that Horus, through the symbolism associated with his eyes, represents the Egyptian version of the 7th ancestor, or the mistress of speech. In the Egyptian myth, after Seth tore out Horus's left eye, Thoth restored it. Okay, now, we've already gone through Thoth and Hermes and his many exploits, or its many exploits, what thrice born really means, and that every god in the Matrix is pretty much Hermes. And that this energy itself is very real. It's more of like an eidolon. It's also ranks in with the trickster gods, if you may, which is actually in all traditions. The peyote, the ancient peyote traditions also have a trickster god mythos. Many have seen the Joker before, or Joker fractal energies on when they go into any kind of higher vibration or any kind of third eye experiences, because generally when you first go through a third eye experience, you're turning on your root chakra, and for males especially, their root chakra is inverted, which is the Joker itself. And generally you come in contact with somewhat like a sinister kind of trickster kind of energy that seems to be kind of taunting you, right? And that's the guardian of the threshold, or the first root chakra inverted, the hanged man, also known as the fool, right, which is Odin. Okay, so it's talking about a certain process that goes on first. So it says in this process, right, that Thoth, who's kind of like still the trickster of the whole thing, replaces an eye of, again, the perfect version or 7th ancestor, that the eye gets replaced. And to me, this is the key. This is like, if you let this slip, you'd never realize where we're at and what's really.
And this is let me check in with y'all. Make sure y'all can hear this. Can y'all hear the video? Can y'all hear the video? I'm gonna take that as a yes. All right, let's continue with the video. But real quick, um, so this part right here is where he about to talk about what I want to show y'all. Because I let him build in to what I want to show y'all. But what he's about to say is is what I want to show y'all about law and the metaphysics of it. So pay attention to this part.
Going on, because you wouldn't realize that the reality that you're actually perceiving now is being perceived from the eye that Thoth restored. Now, watch what it says. So the value of a fraction was assigned to each individual part of this eye, which Set had torn up. The total fraction corresponding to the restoration of the whole eye should have been 64 by 64. After the restoration of the eye, the total of the 6 fractions used resulted in only 63 by 64. It was assumed that Thoth had withheld the missing 1/64th by magic. Now, to me, this is, again, it's not about having all the knowledge. It's just about having the balanced knowledge. Because it could be missed, this part right here, that Thoth withheld the missing 1/64 by magic. To me now, magic, that the magic they're talking about is law. And we'll explain that more next Tri Vibes Digest, but we've already started dialing into that. But you're going to see why law is magic. That's why they call it, hey, we're going to give them a sentence. Here's a spell. Here's the curse. Here's the edict, here's the oath, so all those are actually legal terms, right? So look at what's being said. Now, let me just jump in here really briefly, 1 second.
Okay, and that was that, right? So it's y'all can probably see it better this way, whatever. So as you can see on this page shown right here, basically explains what he was previously reading, 7 Omar. So the last part of that video, he has shared how basically Thoth's magic, which accumulated of 1/64th, was missing. And as you see right here, this is the eye, the fractal eye that they was talking about, the 5 senses, etc. Right? So, but what it's a missing sense that gives you complete common sense. What is that sense? Well, according to 7 Bomar, it's law. According to myself, too, it's law. Because as we see with, I'm going to come back to that picture. As we see in international law, the word international law, it means to integrate. To integrate what? Realities. This world with the spiritual world. That's what international law is. International law means between nations. What is that? Between seas, between 2 governments, between realities. Right? So when we're talking about working with the powers that be on a what they call a Christ consciousness level, a global consciousness level. Excuse me. Yeah, that's what it is. A global consciousness level. We're talking about this. Okay. So of course you have your own personal problems, aspirations. Then we have the state, which is pretty much like a part of the body, one leg. Then we have this more state over here. That's the other leg. That's the other foot or whatever. Then we have this more state over here. Put them together, make one body. We work as one. We made one spirit body. That's an indication how we can measure out a multitude of things. Okay. So this Tipareth point, before I go on, as you see, just integrates. It means integration. That's why the word that I use it for is integrity. That's the realistic word for Tipareth or beauty or this whole sphere I'm talking about. It's integrity. The word integrity. How can you measure your integrity? How can you give life to your integrity? Integrity. How can you bring humbleness to your integrity? How can you bring your integrity to a higher sphere? Because that's the highest tier of your character, your integrity. How you integrate your heart space, your mind, the connection between your heart and your mind. That's all that's saying. That's how you bring in the powers that be to your consciousness. When we talk about telepathy, things like that, nah, that's we're talking about a lower phase of the mind when we're talking about that. That's a lower phase of the mind. That's how you work with the lower phases or archives of the mind. You talking about transmutation, you have to get down to the depth single point, in which not many attributes are there except things of more purity. Don't require as much work unless you're talking about work on self, your heart space, right? So lighter work, if you will. So back to this picture right quick before we start this case. We see that in this picture, it goes to explain how Seven Bomar went in the aspects of Thoth and how he how Thoth means mind, he means the trickster god, et cetera, et cetera. So this is, you know, you can screenshot this and, you know, use it for your studies in many ways. But when we talking about international law, it's important that we talking about the 1/4 magic that they never wanted us to study. You know, they always want everybody to talk about spirituality, how to make your spirit better, how to do yoga, how to do, you know, do it yourself activities, all this type of stuff, whatever. But they don't want nobody to know this certain aspect of international law because it's gonna turn the whole world. You know, you gotta think about it like this: it's a balance. When the Haitians won the war, or you know, after won so many parts of their wars, it was due to spirituality, right? But then, obviously, they got overthrown. We took over France. Okay, well, it's a balance between spirituality and physical, i.e., between the two is law, right? That's what helps bring peace amongst your world, so you can exercise God as you truly wish, with all the qigong and yoga, and all that stuff. That stuff is good. You know, candle magic or whatever you're doing to work on your exercising your mind. I don't care. Whatever, that's whatever. But unless we talking about the crux of this, we ain't really talking about much. We ain't really talking about changing much, right? It's kind of like Morris who's doing business or organization in the United States and think we're about to get something with that. You ain't about to do much. You can get a little bit of hope out of that. I mean, you can still teach people, but I mean, you can't teach people to too many higher degrees working with that, right? So we need to learn how to integrate international law, right? Now we can see spirituality and law, okay, on the base level. Okay, so now we can measure what time it is now. Okay. Um, so just a second here. Let me plug my phone in. Okay. So We can. That's the end of the metaphysical part. Okay. Does anybody has any questions or anything they like to share? Okay. So I'm gonna actually end that video and start anew on the um